Hey everyone, welcome to Tube of Toons. I'm Luke and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing 100% Wolf. So what is 100% Wolf? You might not have heard of it. I'd not seen much marketing for the film, to be quite honest. I just knew that this was one of the new films that was out at the cinema. I'd seen it in the cinema listings for about the last 2 months now. I didn't really know much about it. I do think normally I would have just overlooked the film, moved on past it and gone to see a film that I actually knew about. Well, we've gotten to the stage now where I've watched the newer films like Tenet and New Mutants, and I've watched a lot of the older films that are on that I wanted to watch, some Harry Potters and Jurassic Park, and with pretty much nothing new out recently, I decided to give this film a go. It'd been there for about 2 months now and it didn't seem to be going anywhere, so I thought, why not check it out? The only thing I really knew about this film was that it was an animated children's film, and I'd seen the poster every time I went into the cinema and every time I went on the websites, so I didn't really know what to expect with this film. So before going into this film, I found out that even though it was being distributed by Universal, it was produced by an Australian animation studio that I hadn't heard of before. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, it just means I've not heard of it and I don't really have any expectations based on the studio's name alone. So what is this film? Like, what happens in it? So I'm going to give you a brief summary of the film. Don't worry, there's not really going to be any spoilers. Not going to ruin it, so if you want to watch this video to decide whether or not to check the film out, feel free. So the film centres on a boy named Freddy Lupin, who is a family of a pack of werewolves. His father is the leader of the pack of werewolves and they go around protecting their local town at night. We are also introduced to the idea that the werewolves have a rivalry with dogs. At the start of this film, in like a prologue, we see Freddy's father die, and then the film picks up 6 years later when Freddy is about to become a werewolf for the first time himself. And so when Freddy steps into the light to become a werewolf for the first time, he turns into a fluffy poodle. Now of course this is incredibly embarrassing for him and it brings shame on his family name. Of course the werewolves don't like the dog, and so Freddy sets out to prove himself as a werewolf and show that he can lead the pack. And to do this he decides to retrieve the magical Moonstone, which was lost on the same night he lost his father 6 years ago. So the Moonstone is in the possession of a local ice cream man, and to get it back he must enlist the help of some other dogs he meets along the way. And of course, as they go on the journey, he starts to learn that dogs aren't as bad as he thought they were and all that good stuff. Yeah, so I actually really liked this film. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. Although I said I didn't really know what to expect going in, I think just the fact that I hadn't heard much about this film and not seen any marketing for it definitely made me go in thinking, oh, it's probably some like short, cheap thing, there's probably not a lot of money behind it, it could have just been like churned out. And even though I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know anything about the plot of the film, I didn't go in with the highest expectations about the quality of this film. That being said, I thought it was really fun, really enjoyable. I mean, it is a little cookie cutter in places and it's a little predictable. There's some twists and turns. If you're older, you're going to see them coming, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If he manages to do it in a fun, entertaining way, that's not the worst thing in the world. Sure, it isn't breaking new ground. It's not a completely original film, but it's fun. I really enjoyed watching it, and there's certain aspects of the film where I can see they've like cut corners and saved some money. Yeah, sure. I don't know what the budget of this film was, but it was definitely smaller than something like a Disney or a Warner Brothers feature. But that's not a bad thing. If they're still able to tell a fun, entertaining story, I don't have a problem with that. I was just really pleasantly surprised. This story had a lot of heart. And it just goes to show that no matter what the budget is, you can still tell a good story and work within whatever limitations you have. So of course the main character of this film was Freddy Lupin, and I think your enjoyment of this film will vary on whether or not you like this character. Now I personally did like this character. He was a fun, down-to-earth character. I think he was meant to be somewhat relatable, but I think what I really liked about this character was just the situations he was thrown in and the way he reacted to them. You know, it's funny seeing how he's like grown up with this like disdain for dogs, and now he's forced to become one and interact with them. I just really liked his personality in this film. I thought it was really fun and enjoyable. He does have a fun arc in this film, even if it is predictable. It's still fulfilling to see it come to its completion. And you know, I think he's also a noble character, that he wants to do the right thing. Now obviously that's classic for a lead character in a film, but I always think it's a good character trait to see. I do always think it's a good message to give to children, who are of course the main target target audience for this film. I'd say the next main character of the film is Batty. Now she's the girl dog in the film. She's the first dog that he meets and decides to help him on his journey. I do think at one point they sort of portray her as like the love interest of this film, which is definitely weird because of course he himself isn't actually a dog. He's a boy, or he's a werewolf, or a weird-dog, whatever you want to call it. He's not actually a dog. So do I really want to see a romantic relationship between the two characters? Although I will say the film sort of seems to drop that later on in the film, and I think that was the right call, because I won't say what happens, but with what happens, that definitely wouldn't be what I want out of this relationship. I mean, it's a little cliche, but she has a bit of a sobby backstory. It was giving me like Jessie from Toy Story 2 vibes, or even Mittens from Bolt, or even Tramp from Lady and the Tramp. This is definitely something we've seen before with street animals. Sure, we've seen it before, but it doesn't mean it's not well done here. And so I think that definitely makes up for the fact that, yeah, it's unoriginal. I think this is like a recurring theme I keep saying in this film. There's things that you have seen before, but that doesn't mean they've not done it well. It's the way they do those tropes and the way they combine those cliches in interesting ways that you haven't seen before. So, and as a whole, the product does feel somewhat new. But while I do talk about cliches, there are many more in this film. There's a lot of kooky characters, whether it's the main villain of the ice cream man, you know, he has a plush monkey that he likes to talk to, and he throws some crazy body shapes every now and again. They also have the dog catchers, which is obviously a very classic trope in like old cartoons of like the dog catchers chasing after the dogs, and they don't really do much more than that. Like, they're not in the film a huge amount, but when they are in the film, they're just doing exactly what you've seen a dog catcher do before, in like a cartoony and quirky way. The second villain of the woman that runs the dog shelter / the pound, she's also very over the top and kooky, and like, you know, she doesn't feel fresh as a character, but like I said, I feel like they do it fairly well, and so it's still enjoyable to watch. There is like a sweet elderly lady character that is secretly an awesome badass, you know, which is something that I've seen many times before. Immediately I jump to mind Hoodwinked, but it's been done in countless films. Yeah, it's a cliche, but it doesn't stop it being funny when you see it in this film. There's also a few kid characters in this film, and it's that trope of writers don't quite get a grasp on how to write children. These two like slightly villainous children are like introduced to us listening to music, and they're dancing like, yeah, and it just, no one dances like that. That's not how people listen to music, particularly not children. And it also, to be honest, didn't really feel like it matched their characters. Like later on in the film, they weren't as annoying as they were in that first scene. I will say they weren't super annoying in every scene that they were in, but every now and again I just looked at those characters and I was a bit like, This film did feature quite a lot of toilet humour, whether that's a mix of fart jokes and of course the obvious dog marking their territory joke. Your mileage may vary on how much you like that sort of humour. It's not my cup of tea. I think it's a fairly low form of comedy, but if you like that sort of thing, sure, you'll like this film. There's quite a few instances that I felt like I had to mention it. It definitely didn't enough to ruin my enjoyment of this film. I just sort of overlooked them, but there is quite a few instances of it. And I do think it also wouldn't have been as bad as if the joke was a simple fart and that was the joke. It felt like every time a character farted, every other character in the scene had to comment on it and be like, oh my god, and it just drew out the joke and almost killed the joke in a way. I don't know, maybe if you like fart jokes it was fine, but to me it would have been far more forgivable if it was just a quick thing and it was gone, and if they didn't linger on the joke. And I do think the marking your territory bit, like, it would have been fine if they'd done it once, but you know, it was almost a recurring theme within the film and it came back, which in a way is like, yes, they've set it up and they've paid it off, but I don't know, it was just a little bit too much for my liking in this film. The designs, I did quite like the designs of this film. You could definitely tell who were the main characters in this film. They definitely looked a lot nicer, they had better hair simulations. This is where you sort of could tell that the film really was cheap, but I feel like it very much was an economical thing. Characters that were a little bit more in the background only had a few lines, definitely didn't have as much time spent on their models and the texturing of them, which makes sense, you know, if they're not getting enough screen time, obviously you're not going to spend as much money on them. But I do think between the main characters and some of the background characters, it was notable that there was a difference in quality of the models. You know, Freddy had almost realistic hair and realistic fur when he was a dog, but a lot of the other characters seemed to have like blocky, very plastic looking hair that definitely didn't have any simulations on it. It was just a modelled block of hair. It's not super distracting, and maybe if you aren't knowledgeable about how animation works, you probably might not notice it. But I do think it is a shame, and I think it's something that almost could have been avoided. For instance, there's a lot of characters in Freddy's family that exist both in human and werewolf form, and I think, to be honest, if you just stripped a few of those characters away, a few of those characters that, to be honest, didn't say anything and were basically background characters, then you might have been able to spend a bit more money on the characters that did have a few lines. I mean, really, it's only a small complaint, but I do think it is noticeable, and that's where you do start to see that, yeah, the film definitely did have a lower budget. So my final thoughts, yeah, sure, there were a few things that I did pick at with this film, but like, I really am just being picky here. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. I think it is harder to talk about things you like about a film than it is to pick out things that you dislike. So don't let you think that overall I didn't like the film and that I'm picking on it. No, I really enjoyed this film. And it's just kind of hard to express what I liked about it other than that it was really fun and entertaining. And obviously I don't want to go into spoilers about the ending, so I don't really want to talk about that, but I really like the ending of this film. Yeah, if you have a chance to go and see this film, if the cinemas or the movie theatres are open near you, 100% Wolf is probably playing in them because there isn't much to play at the minute. So definitely go check that out. I think it is going to be available on digital soon, I'm not entirely sure. But if you're looking to entertain the kids, I think it's definitely going to do the job, and you might even enjoy it as well. So yeah, overall I would recommend this film. It's nothing mind-blowingly good, there's nothing brand new here, but it doesn't stop it from being fun, so go and watch it. But it's definitely worth a watch. I think you'll enjoy it. I did. Yes, that's pretty much everything I've got to say about the film. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this where I review films that maybe are a little bit more obscure that not many people are talking about, let me know down below that this is the sort of thing that you want to see. Because I might go out and search for some of these more smaller films, because, you know, you do find gems like this film hidden away that don't have a massive marketing budget behind them to like really get them out there. So I'd love to keep talking about films like this that people haven't really heard about. If you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button and you can ring that notification bell to be notified the next time a video is out. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Cheers. Thanks for watching Tube of Tunes. If you want more from the channel, hit subscribe. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on, follow us on our socials. Hope you liked it. Cheers.